Well, hey everybody, John Rickland here, and this is Which Was Worse, episode 16. More title reigns that I didn't necessarily care for that were kind of booked a little weird, especially one in particular. Warrior's WWE title reign, his lone WWE title reign. Oh, such a shame that he only won the title, the fucking hack. And Sting's first WCW title reign, well, NWA, but what that he won in the WCW era. So the reason I'm comparing these is one, these two obviously have a synergy as they start off as a tag team. And if you don't know what that is, please take a look at Warrior and Sting as a tag team. Sweet Christ, oh dear, it was bad. At least Sting got better. Warrior certainly fucking didn't. But that's part of the reason why I'm doing this one. And also, they kind of take place during the same time period. Warrior won the title at WrestleMania 6 from Hulk Hogan, and then lost it against Sergeant Slaughter at Royal Rumble 91. So that's about 9 months, essentially. Sting was supposed to win at Wrestle War 90, but then, suffered a, ACL injury, had to come back a number of months later. Great American Bash 90, beat Ric Flair for it, and then held it, I think, until the very beginning of 91, if I recall correctly. Something like that. Because he lost it sometime right after Starrcade 90, which was near the end of the year. So, why am I taking a look at that? Like, obviously, Sting had the shorter reign. He had a reign of, just over 5 months, almost 6 months, depending, on the actual dates and everything of when he lost it. And Warrior held it for 9 months. But let's take a look at the factors, like, what was Warrior doing before he became WWE Champion? Okay, so Warrior was Intercontinental Champion, had won it back from Rick Rude at SummerSlam 89. And because they had less pay-per-views at the time, and even in WCW they had less pay-per-views, there was, Saturday Night Main Event, Superstars, a lot of syndicated TV taping, and stuff like that, because this was well before Raw ever became a thing. So, yeah, you had Warrior as Intercontinental Champion, and then they build up this whole thing. We're at the Rumble, he had this appearance. He eliminated Ted DiBiase, who was the number one contender, or not number one contender, but number one entrant in the Rumble. Warrior actually would end up feuding with DiBiase soon, soon after WrestleMania 6. But then what happened is you had Hogan in there, and Warrior had been there, I think, number 18. I think Hogan came in number 24, 25, I think 25. And they had a face-off where it's like Michaels got tossed out along with Martel, I believe. Martel or Santana. And then Honky Tonk Man got tossed out, and you had Hogan and Warrior face off, and they face off like these two titans and everything, which I will say was a hell of a moment. I don't really care for either guy personally, especially Warrior. I don't really have much respect for Warrior. I just don't fucking care about the guy. Except I feel a lot of rage knowing that guy made more money in wrestling than he ever deserved to, while others kind of got pennies because Vince McMahon liked bodies, but not guys that were necessarily good in the ring. And I'm sorry, Warrior wasn't. Now, did he have a flashy persona? Did he appeal to kids? Does he have a long-lasting character? Sure. Is it long-lasting for the right reasons? Debatable. But anyway, so you have Warrior and Hogan face-off and everything, and then on Saturday Night's Main Event, they would have, more face-offs, and it would build up, this big, big clash. Intercontinental Champion Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan, title for title. A lot of people forget Hogan had a chance to become Intercontinental Champion, and he wasn't going to ever get a crack at it again, at least as far as I know. So yeah, a lot of people forget that was for the Intercontinental title, and the Intercontinental title actually got to be in the main event of WrestleMania. Always gets overshadowed by granted, it gets overshadowed by the fact that it was champion versus champion, but and overshadowed by the fact it was Warrior and Hogan. But yeah, that Intercontinental title was on the line. Warrior wins. Hogan kind of takes the limelight away. I took the title, hands it to Warrior, raises his hand. Okay, cool. Hogan makes sure the camera's on him when he leaves. And yeah, Warrior celebrates, does the pyro, all that stuff. He would go on to have feuds like with Ted DiBiase. He would, I think he faced Andre like the year before. But still, the whole point is Warrior, I'm sorry, people love seeing Warrior win it. He had that match with Rick Rude at SummerSlam 90 that ended a bit quickly, and it was like Rick Rude's last pay-per-view appearance. He was gone by before Survivor Series 90, if I recall correctly. And then Warrior would lose it at Royal Rumble 91. in a fairly overbooked match that, like, in the beginning you had, and I'm not trying to minimize Warrior winning at Mania 6, like, it didn't mean anything. It did. It represented a passing of the torch, but the problem is, Warrior, being the bumbling fool that he is and not really being coordinated, pretty much slipped while carrying that torch, set himself on fire, set the company ablaze. It did well, but it didn't do great, and that's why Hogan won the title, like, a year later. But then he faced up against Rick Rude. He was part, I believe, of an elimination tag at Survivor Series 90. I think he even teamed with the Legion Doom. But then we lost to Sergeant Slaughter at Royal Rumble 91. Horribly booked, or overbooked match. Not horribly booked, but very horribly overbooked. Because they did everything they could to mask the fact that Slaughter was pretty much wiped out. He wasn't going to wrestle full-time much longer, maybe a couple more years. And then Warrior just, sorry, the guy was fucking limited. Now, I mean, there's one thing about hiding weaknesses, but he really wasn't all that good. So, earlier in the night, Sensational Sherry is like, I'm going to beg Ultimate Warrior for a shot. You know, I begged Sergeant Slaughter. He agreed that if he won the title, he would face Randy Savage. He would give the Macho King a shot. And then she's like doing everything she can with Warrior. She deserved fucking hazard pay for having to get near that fucking idiot and try to act, turned on and attracted to him. But, sorry, can you tell I don't like Ultimate Warrior very much? And she's like, begging, please give Macho King a shot. That's all I want to hear. And Warrior just, shakes his head. No! He just, screams. I can't do an Ultimate Warrior impression. Just, no! He just starts screaming that. While Sherry's there on her knees, you stop being dirty. I run a clean show here. But then Savage is all upset. During the match, Sherry runs out there after Warrior had beaten the shit out of Slaughter and General Adnan, and had beaten and then tore the Iraqi flag. I mean, granted, we were at war with Iraq, but maybe we should piss off the good people that were in that country. But whatever, cheap heat anyway. Sherry then comes down, and Sherry ends up getting Warrior, distracting Warrior. He chases her to the back, and Savage blindsides him, hits him with like a light or something like that, or like some piece of equipment, lays him out. But the referee's distracted by Slaughter. Not that the referee would have been able to see down that long corridor and actually see what was going on, because this was a pretty big arena that they were in. But then Slaughter ends up beating Warrior for the title, because soon after, even though Warrior made his comeback after Slaughter beat him down, Savage got the scepter, hit Warrior in the head, and then he lost the title. Then they had the retirement match where Warrior should have lost. He didn't. But then would lead the company 5 months later because he was a little fucking baby that didn't appreciate Vince giving him an opportunity when Warrior never fucking deserved it. And then after that, he had other stints in the company and whatever. So yeah, that title reign ended after 9 months. That took a little longer than I thought. Sting, let's go with Sting's, like what built to Sting being declared champion or made to be champion. Starrcade 89, he pins Ric Flair, in the finals of that weird tournament thing, the 4-man tournament, singles tournament, 4-man team tournament format they had. I enjoyed Starrcade 89, but, I'm starting to agree with people about why they said it wasn't very good. But anyway, Sting then seemingly joined the Four Horsemen, which is just a little bit of a way to bridge the gap to where it was, Sting being kicked out of the Horsemen. And part of the reason he was kicked out of the Horsemen, because Arn was brought back, Tully Blanchard was not brought back because Jim Herd was a goddamn idiot. Also, totally failed a drug test and another company. I don't understand why that was necessarily good, but then again, Jim Herd never made any good decisions, and I hope Jim Herd is suffering horribly for what he did to that company. He's a fucking goddamn rotten piece of shit. So, moving on from that, Sting tears his knee, tears his ACL at the Clash of Champions just before Wrestle War 90, which is actually not that bad of a pay-per-view. They had switched Luger babyface because Sting could not recover from a torn ACL. Even Sting is not that good, and ACL need time to be repaired. Luger's turned face. He faces off against Flair. They don't switch the belt. Sting then comes back miraculously pretty early. I mean, he was featured sort of by being stuffed in the cage at Capital Combat, and then RoboCop JR having to sell the whole thing of RoboCop tearing the bars open, the gimmick bars, and it was bad. It was so bad. And then Sting at Great American Bash 90 beats Ric Flair. You had the Dudes with Attitudes, which I believe was JYD, Paul Orndorff, and the Steiner brothers. If I remember right, I believe JYD was involved in that. and, Dudes with Attitudes, which sounds like such a fucking late 80s, early 90s beach movie. It just sounds so bad. It sounds like a Beach Boys tribute band if that tribute band just didn't give a shit. But anyway, they battled the Horsemen, which was like Arn, Ole, and Sid Vicious. Actually, Ole was handcuffed to Elegante, and I think actually he had Wyndham in there too. So, yeah, it was a messy time in WCW. Sting manages to beat Ric Flair, gets an inside cradle, 1, 2, 3. And then the Black Scorpion segment and feud and bullshit and stuff that nobody fucking asked for. The Black Scorpion, which was, various people, I think including Al Perez. I'm sure it was other people. Forgive me if I don't remember who all of them are, because I don't know how many people they use on house shows, TV. I think Al Perez was one of them 1.1 to be the champion. I don't know why the fuck they would have made Al Perez the champion. He looked good. That was it. But yeah, they did more bullshit at Halloween Havoc because that was the next pay-per-view, because they didn't have a pay-per-view every month back in 1990. That would take a few years. Halloween Havoc, they had Sid versus Sting, and they gimmicked that match up to fuck because they didn't want to beat Sid clean, but they didn't want to switch the belt. So what they did is they had Sting, and I think they had Sting and Sid fight out into the crowd. Well, they had Sting go off somewhere. Sid gets back in the ring. You then had somebody dressed like Sting. It was Barry Windham with his haircut and face paint to look like Sting. And then Windham or Sting picks up Sid, but for a slam, Sid falls on him. 1, 2, 3. Sid's the champion, except he's not. Then Sting comes from the back, and oh god damn it, it's so fucking bad. So fucking bad. Sting ends up beating Sid, and it was overly gimmicked. It was ridiculous. You had more Black Scorpion bullshit before that. You had Black Scorpion bullshit on the fucking Clash of Champions and stuff like that. And then you had Starrcade 1990, which was the Black Scorpion, obviously Ric Flair under a mask because they couldn't get whoever the fuck else it was to be there, probably Al Perez. But then you had them. You had a mask versus title match, and the Black Scorpion, even though Flair varied up his offense, you could fucking tell it was Flair because of the face. You just recognized it facially. It was easy. And then what happened is Sting beat the Black Scorpion, despite the Horsemen trying to interfere. Wonder who the fuck it was. And the mask gets removed, even though there was a whole bunch of bullshit and a big schmoz and everything. And it was Ric Flair, and the pay-per-view goes off the air. And then soon after that, they switched the belt. I want to say, I don't know if it was on a Clash or it was on a house show, but Flair wins the title back from Sting. So Sting's title reign pretty much ends with a whimper. At least Warriors ended on pay-per-view, even though that match was shit. I gotta say this, even though I railed on Warrior's reign and Warrior being a piece of shit person, I was not sad when he passed away. Sorry, I just fucking wasn't. You can call me a hater all you goddamn well want. Feel bad for his kids, that's about it. So, I gotta say that Sting's was worse. Yeah, you could argue that his win over Flair maybe felt a little bit bigger, at least as far as like, hey, this is a new guy, this is a new blood, the passing of the torch. But if Sting hadn't torn his ACL and had won it at Wrestle War, it would have been better. That's not Sting's fault. These things just happen. But had that not happened, I think it would have been a bit of a different ballgame. Now, granted, WCW still wouldn't have drawn, but it still would have gone better. So yeah, Sting's reign, worse, mainly because they booked it even more like shit. At least Warrior was sort of made to look strong, and they had to gimmick up everything at the end. But at least with his, he had, I don't want to say he had better matches, but he was treated more like a star. With Sting, he was in some of the goofiest goddamn shit. It took till 92 with the Papa Shango stuff for them to do goofy shit with Ultimate Warrior. But anyway, yeah, that's what I gotta say. So Sting, even though it's not by much. Do you agree? Do you disagree with what I said? Like, share, subscribe. Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I will see you soon.